Blog Talk Radio.
The following broadcast is brought to you by the iGolf Sports Network.
Golf Talk Live is sponsored by the iGolf Sports Network and Golf Tips Magazine. Here's Andrew to tell you more about our sponsors.
iGolf Sports is a live stream broadcast and media production company providing quality programming designed to attract the golfing enthusiast. And Golf Tips, the game's most in-depth instruction magazine, including reviews on the latest equipment, tips from top teaching professionals, all designed to help you improve from tee to green. Welcome to Golf Talk Live with your host, Ted Odorico. Join Ted each week as he speaks with some of the best in golf. This week's special guest will join us a bit later. But first up is another great discussion on Coach's Corner. So let's introduce tonight's Coach's Corner panel.
All right, good evening, everybody, and once again, welcome to Golf Talk Live. I'm your host, Ted Odorico, and this week, doing something a little bit different. I'm actually broadcasting live from Daytona Beach, Florida, as I came out here to check out the Epson's Tour Championship, which is, of course, their final event of the season. So all of the young ladies are going to be battling it out this weekend as they pursue their LPGA Tour cards. Of course, the top group of them will earn their cards, and then the others will battle out for some status, but not certainly full status. But I think it's the top 10, if I'm not mistaken, automatically get full status out into the LPGA Tour. So all of those that are getting close to the cut mark are going to be battling it out this weekend as they, again, try to see if they can get into that top 10 spot. And those, of course, that don't will have a chance to go to through the qualification or Q Series, which, of course, the LPGA's qualifying series in order to earn a spot that way. So much luck to all the ladies this week. I'm going to be checking out some of the tournament and doing some other things as well this week, and so I'm really excited to be here. And I'm excited for all of you to join me this week as well. All right, I'm going to be joined, as it mentioned here, by the Coach's Corner panel. I'll introduce them in just a moment. And a little bit later on in the broadcast, I'm going to be joined by my very special guest, Kelly Paraguay. He is the president of Kelkin Enterprises. He's been on the show before, and he's going to be talking about a few things on tonight's show, particularly his new incinerator golf ball, guaranteed to help with your slice end or your hook. So we'll talk to him a little bit about that. I think he's got a few other surprises, too, he's going to be sharing with the audience tonight, so I hope you'll tune in. All right, let me introduce tonight's Coach's Corner panel. First up, of course, is Pete Buchanan. He's been teaching golf now for 30-plus years. He's the founder and director of instruction of Plain Simple Golf, LLC, which, of course, houses the Plain Simple Golf Circuit and the Simple Swing Repeater Training Brace. And he's been helping golfers focus on building a repeatable swing, and I think you're going to enjoy what he has to talk about tonight. John Decker also is joining up the panel. He's a director of instruction at the Medallion Club in Columbus, Ohio. He's also a senior editor and top 25 instructor at Golf Tips Magazine. Prior to that, he was head instructor at Grand Cypress Golf Academy in Orlando. Back in 2015, he was the Southern Ohio Teacher of the Year and authored the book Golf is My Life, Glorifying God Through the Game, which, of course, includes a Bible study and is also available in audiobook form as well. And he's also a public speaker. So, John and Pete, welcome to Coach's Corner here on Golf Talk Live. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you, Ted.
Thanks, Ted. It's good to be here.
All right. We're going to talk about a sort of a mixed bag, no pun intended, of a few things. And some of the things we're going to talk about here, first off, is really how to handle frustration. This is an area that obviously many levels of golfers battle with. Obviously, our higher handicappers probably have a little bit more difficulty with handling their frustration, and we're going to talk about a few different things. I'm going to be very specific, and I'm going to start in the order that I introduced you, and then we'll switch over to the other in a moment. So, Pete, I'm going to start with you. So I think that there's a number of strategies. One of the things that I think causes a lot of frustration, you get out there and, the morning's great, you're with your friends, the birds singing, the sun's shining, all that kind of stuff, and you get out there and the very first shot of the day flies straight and far, unfortunately goes into the trees and out of bounds to the right. But you think to yourself, hey, no worries. You tell yourself, I'll just tee up another ball, hit a provisional, and you end up duffing that one 10 feet in front of you. all of a sudden the embarrassment kicks in. Your friends are kind of looking at you a little squirrely, and the frustration starts to pick in. One of the first strategies I want to talk about with you is putting golf in perspective. And I think a lot of people tend to put undue pressure. So talk a little bit about that. What are we talking about when we say sort of put it in perspective? It's a game, of course. We understand that. Some people play at various levels. But let's try to put it in perspective for the golfers. What should they really be focusing on when they're out there in order to sort of eliminate some of the frustrations that they might be feeling?
Well, that's a great segment to start off on. I think, most of them, if they could just equate, playing golf and being out on the golf course relative to what they do on a daily basis. I mean, I'm sure they're all pretty good at the jobs or whatever else they do because they spend a lot of time doing it. They do it on a daily basis. And, they don't spend that much time on golf. So you sort of have to look at the amount of time you're spending on it versus, what you normally do for a living. So I think if they can put it into that perspective, I think they'll see that, the frustration level should be a little bit less because they don't spend as much time really working on golf as they do everything else. I think if they can understand that, obviously if you do put more time into it, it's going to get a little bit better. But I've always tried to, I used to tease this one gentleman that I used to coach. He's a heart surgeon, and he'd get frustrated. And I said, "Hey, what are you doing next Wednesday?" He goes, "What do you mean?" I've got an open heart surgery. He says, "Let me do it. I got 4 days to prepare. I think I can get ready to get that done. What do you think?" It's just sort of getting back into the perspective of, oh, wait a minute, you haven't trained for all that. And I said, man, you haven't trained for all this either. So let's get your expectation levels down to understanding, what you're actually doing here. But I think also frustration can mount more when they don't understand what they're doing. I think to me that's where a lot of frustration comes in when you don't have a good understanding of what you're trying to do, and then you just compound it by trying a zillion different things to try to get rid of that frustration. But I think if they can put it into perspective as to relative to what they do on a daily basis, I think it can help them to ease some of that frustration.
Well said. And John, I think that for a lot of golfers, Pete sort of hit it right on the nose, is, how much time are they really preparing? What are they doing to get ready? Obviously, as he mentioned, they might have a regular job, unless they're retired, of course. But at one point they did have a regular job and they had to do certain things to train and get ready for that. So they're willing to put in that time. A lot of people don't do the same thing when it comes to their golf game. They don't spend as much quality time in practicing. And it's not just about going out hitting a bunch of balls. It's actually practicing with a purpose. The other part, which comes to strategy number 2, so I'm going to bring this entirely different area of the game for you to discuss. And this is about being factual about your game. So, for instance, if you're slicing the ball to the right, it talks, about the self-talk. And so instead of saying something like, I'm horrible with my driver, I'll never be able to hit it straight, be factual and understand what it is that you're doing wrong. In this particular case, your club face is pointing to the right at impact. So I'll need to check maybe my grip and alignment to make sure that I'm doing things right. So there's a lot of things that go on. People are not always – I'll give you another quick example as well, and then I'm going to let you speak. If you're having trouble, as an example, with maybe your putting and chipping, the last thing you need to be doing is telling yourself, well, I have a bad short game, or I'm not good at with any of my wedges. Again, be factual. You're not spending a lot of time practicing that part of your game, and that's why you're having that trouble. So, again, I think doing an honest assessment is probably a great place to start. Give us your thoughts in this area about being factual, and maybe give an example of what people can do to maybe talk to themselves and get themselves in a better frame of mind, because I think that has a lot to do with frustration as well. It's not just the physical part of the game. Go ahead.
Well, you're exactly right. And, Ted, thank you again for having us on the show. And, Pete, I look forward to being on with you tonight as always. The thing that you want to understand about when you hit a poor shot in golf, and everyone at every level hits poor shot, is the first thing that you have to tell yourself is, I have an opportunity. I have a recovery opportunity, or I have a bunker opportunity, or I have an opportunity to get the ball out of the trees. You have to turn the negative into a positive from your mental standpoint. Otherwise, you will drive yourself crazy on the golf course, because you're going to have bad things happen to you. You're going to hit the ball and it's going to go in a divot, or you're going to hit a shot that goes off into the trees or into the water. And so you have to look at this as an opportunity. So whenever I miss a green, for example, the first thing I tell myself is I have an opportunity to get it up and down. I have an opportunity to get a one putt. I'm a big believer in statistics. And you talk about knowing, I don't really care if a student hits a ball into the trees. I don't really care that they know that their club face was open 2 or 3 degrees. But what I do want them to know is, okay, when they get done with their round, I want them to know how many fairways they hit, how many greens in regulation they hit, how many putts they had, their up and down percentage, their bunker percentage. And it only takes a few minutes at the end of the round to figure that information up. There's a lot of great apps out there for people who are really tech. I like to sit down and keep actually a spreadsheet when I go play, and I put in every time I go out, even if I go out for 5 or 6 holes with a student, I'm always charting that stuff because I want to know really where I'm weak and where I'm strong. And the average person, I can't tell you how many times people will come to me during a lesson and they'll say to me, I played horrible yesterday. And, as a teacher, I don't have that, they're paying me by the hour or the half hour. I don't have time to ask them like a million questions and take up their lesson time. They need to come to me, and I say, when you come to me, I want you to tell me, okay, I played poorly yesterday because I, had 5 penalty shots or 3 penalty shots and I had 40 putts or something like that. I want to know more specific so that I can do a better job as a teacher. The more information they can give me about their round, the better I can do at tailoring the lesson to what they need to work on. And you always want to work on your weakness. You don't want to work on what you're doing well. If you're driving the ball well, we don't need to work on your driver. We need to work on what you're not doing well. So for the listeners out there, keep statistics. That's real simple to do. And once you have an idea and start looking at it objectively, you need to look at your round objectively, just like you look at your bank account and your budget objectively. You need to look at your round of golf objectively, and it's all numbers. And the numbers will always point to what you're good at and what you're not good at. And then whatever you're not good at, go work on that, and that's how you become a better player.
Yeah, well said, John. And you're exactly right. I think that a lot of people need to really understand everything about their game. What they're doing, what areas of their game they're good at, what areas of their game they're not so good at. And by keeping those statistics and that information, gathering that information, and it takes really very little time. There's actually a lot of great apps out in the market right now that you can actually do that relatively easily without having to spend a lot of time, jotting things down. A lot of apps can provide you with certain statistics and get that information. And a lot of programs out there as well will actually even allow you, if you're coordinating with your coach or your swing instructor, if you're working with somebody on a regular basis, you can actually do that online and actually have that information sent to them automatically after your round so they can see that. And the next time you're going to your lesson, they've already had a chance to review what's going on that particular time. So there's a lot of great information that you put in there, and you're exactly right. I think the more information that they know and can bring to us as instructors, the better prepared we can be to address and attack some of those areas that they're having difficulties with. Pete, I'm going to come back to you, and another strategy here is really is essentially being neutral or positive about, again, your game. A lot of times people have a very strong negative reaction, to a specific shot, and it gets very well deeply ingrained into their memory. So, for instance, they're dragging up past shots, not just from earlier in the round, but sometimes several rounds ago. And even if they're having a consistent area of their game, as John pointed out, maybe their chipping isn't very good or their putting's not really good. As soon as they get faced with that scenario, they're now all of a sudden saying, I'm kind of sketchy with my putting, so I'm not expecting a very good result here. And they've already set themselves up for failure. So I like to, personally, I think they need to either be neutral, meaning not really, saying anything negative. And if you can't think of anything positive, just don't say anything at all. But I think, again, it all boils down to the mindset of the golfer, sort of putting those bad shots behind you, and then at the same time really appreciating the good shots. So give us just a little bit of an overview of what I'm talking about here, and give maybe some specific things on what people can do to be able to help that a little bit?
Well, I think, golf can be frustrating. It's it is such a mind game and a mindset to it. But I think if they can always look at every situation they come up to, what am I up against, and what's my best way to take care of this? So you're always looking for a situation, but then how can I get myself back to where I need to be in a simple, positive way to make it work? So instead of dwelling on what just happened, let's look at, okay, well, here's where I'm at. What's the situation? What am I up against? Am I chipping? How far am I going to fly it? How far am I going to run it? So I think if they always get themselves into a mindset of trying to understand what they're trying to do next, it will ease the time that they spend, dwelling on what just happened. It's a tough one. I mean, obviously when you hit bad shots, it's frustrating and it's easy to get negative. But I think more, like you're saying, if you can keep yourself neutral at least all the way through, and just try to always, stay positive in what you're trying to do. That's a tough one to answer. I mean, because there's, you can say just be positive, and that's not really all there is to it. I think if you can have, I did this with one of my juniors the other day. Hit a shot that was offline, and I said, okay, timeout. I said, what do we have to do next? What's our next shot? What's our best approach from here in order for us to be able to make a par on this hole? What do we need to do next? So I want you to look at the situation and tell me how you're going to play this. I want you to verbally tell me what's going to happen. And so we kept doing that for about 3 or 4 holes, and all of a sudden, the negative side wasn't there anymore, because he was always trying to look at what am I going to do next? What am I going to do next? And, not dwelling really on what just happened. So I think, that's kind of a way you can go about it, and just, try to look at what the next step's going to be. And, okay, well, yeah, I hit a bad one, but I got work to do. I got another objective here. So let's move on and let's hit the next one.
Well said. And you're right. It is a difficult thing to answer because, again, everybody is different. Here's a couple of things that I've done in the past that I think have been proven to be very successful, certainly with students I've worked with. One of the things I do, and I'm going to talk about first off on the golf course with general shots. We'll talk about the putting for a second, but in a second. But, everybody generally has a club or a shot in the bag, as it were. Most people do. Certainly not everybody, but certainly anybody that's played for a while. So maybe it's their trusty 7-iron. Maybe it's an 8-iron. Maybe it's even their hybrid club. So what I always say to people, if you're faced with a shot, let's say for argument's sake you've got 230 yards to the green. Maybe there's some water, there's bunkers in front, and you don't feel confident you're going to make it to the green. So what I'll say is, and rather than pulling out that 3-wood that you're not that comfortable with, why not figure out what your yardage is that you're comfortable hitting a wedge shot into the green, and play to that yardage. So if it's 100 yards, instead of trying to hit a 230-yard shot, pull out the club that's going to best get you 130 yards up into the fairway to that 100-yard or 95, whatever it happens to be, position. So yeah, you're going to take an extra shot, but you're not likely going to fail because you've taken precautions to say, okay, I know I can hit 130 yards quite confidently. I know I'm going to be able to hit that 100-yard shot, approach shot to the green, so I'm going to break the 230 into 2 different shots. And even though it might cost you an extra stroke, it could be far worse if you tried to go for it and ended up in the water or ended up out of bounds or what have you, and then you're in a real mess. The same thing with putting. You get on the putting green, maybe you've got a 20, 25-foot lag putt. You're not a great putter or you're not putting well that day. Rather than trying to go for it, look at it and say, okay, what length of shot am I confident that I know I can sink? And it might be 3-foot putt. Maybe you're pretty good at 3-foot putt. So all I need to do is I need to lag my 20, 25-yard or foot putt into that area, so that once I get in that area, I know I'm confident I'm going to get it in 2. And I think if you play in that sort of mindset and in frame of mind, I think you'll find you'll be much more successful, and you can talk confidently to yourself about doing things like that, as opposed to being faced with difficult shots or being faced with a situation that you're not very comfortable with. I think that will help you in the long run. And that's some of the things that I've done over the years that have proven to be very successful, certainly for my clients. I don't know whether they've worked for you guys, something similar, but that's what I try to do is I try to make it as comfortable for them as possible based on their game rather than taking unnecessary chances. So just some food for thought for you out there, guys out there that are having some difficulty, not sure how to handle a situation. There's some options that you might want to consider. All right, John, I'm going to come back to you, and we're going to talk about videos. This is something that, has been around for a long time, and we've all at some point have used video to record our students' shots. And that. Give me an idea of what you're looking at when you're videoing your student. What is it you're looking for, and what is it you want them to see when they're reviewing that video with you? What is it? Some of it obviously is going to be similar, and I know you're looking at the same video, but as an instructor, are you looking for something different specifically when you're looking at that video? And what is it that you want your student to particularly see? What is it you want to point out? What is it you want other than just watching themselves swing a golf club? Are there any specific things you're trying to get them to key in on?
Yes, the first thing with video is I video with pretty much every lesson that I do, but I do it in very small amounts. I always equate the video. I tell the student it's very much like going to the doctor with a broken bone. This is the x-ray. Okay, I'm going to show you the x-ray of the broken bone, but then after that x-ray, we're going to spend the rest of the lesson on rehabbing and getting you your arm or leg or whatever fixed. In this case, the golf swing. So one of the things about when I do video is I show them within the first 10 to 15 minutes of the lesson after they're warmed up and I have an idea what I'm going to work on. I show them the video, and then that's it. There's no more going back. I don't believe in going back every 5 minutes and looking at every single swing because the student gets too consumed with the visual. I do want them to have an idea of what it looks like visually, but I don't want them to be consumed with it. After the lesson's over, I email them a recap, and I go through and draw more specific lines. I get much more detailed and then email that video to them after the lesson. Now, what I'm looking for in the video is from the back view, I'm looking at their swing path. I'm looking at their club face angle. And the back view would be the view where I'm behind them shooting down the target line toward the target. I look at their distance from the ball. I look at their posture. I look at their spine angle. Those are the keys I'm looking for. From the front view or the face-on view where I'm looking more at the golf ball, looking at them from the face view, I'm looking at their ball position. I'm looking at their transition. That's the power side. So the back view is more of your direction. So if you're a student who's really curving the ball to the left or to the right, I'm going to spend a lot of time on the back view because that's going to show the club face angle and the path angle, in the video. If you're someone that's struggling with fat and thin shots or ball position or you don't have enough power, like students who tell me, I need more distance, I'm going to show them more from the front view because that's more of the power view. So that's what I'm looking for, and that's what I try to get, try to have all my students understand is the video is important because I believe video is a good tool, but it's only a tool. Just like a launch monitor is a tool, it's a tool that you use for a little bit, but you don't use it for the entire lesson because otherwise I think the student gets in their head too much. They don't get, the tough part is, anyone can diagnose a problem. Any teacher out there can diagnose the problem. The hard part is fixing the problem. That's the hard part. So that's where you want to get them away from the tools, and you want to get them to, doing drills and having a better feel of what they're going to be doing in the lesson.
Yeah, and that really raises an interesting point, too, because a lot of times, students are always looking at the wrong things. They're not really focusing on, maybe they've got, as you said, if you're checking the path, that's something you want to see. Are they getting it on a good club? Are they getting the club on a good path? Those are things that you're looking for, and you want to certainly point those out, and you want to point certain things out. Maybe they're flaring their arm out a little bit too much, the old chicken wing, as they say, and it's causing a specific problem in their swing, and you want to point those out. But yeah, you don't want to dissect the video to a point of nausea because the problem is then they're not really focusing on or isolating specific areas. They're just focusing on the overall swing itself, and a lot of times that just takes up a lot of valuable time. Pete, I want to sort of carrying along with this video thing, I want to ask you something a little bit different, and this sort of piggybacks onto what John just talked about. A lot of students, we try to help them in some way to be able to assess their own game a little bit. Obviously, they're not doing what we do, but they're able to understand, whether it be through the ball flight, results, the ball flight laws, as we call them, are able to understand what it is they're doing if they've been taught some of those issues. But how do we prevent them from getting in their own way of their own progress? I mean, there's things that we give them to do. They're watching all kinds of videos online, some from instructors that are certainly qualified, and others are just from somebody giving their opinion. So there's a lot of information being fed to the students, and we hear it all the time. They come up and say, well, I was watching this video the other day, or what do you think about that? And we've talked about this many times on the show before, where we're spending a lot of our time in the lesson, not necessarily debunking, but, talking about an issue instead of getting down to the business at hand. So a lot of times students that spend too much time trying to overanalyze everything get in their own way of progress. How can we help them get on a good path, certainly be mindful of things, as John pointed out, of certain areas that may be giving them, some struggles, but not overwhelming them with so information? What can we do to sort of stifle that student from trying to, overanalyze everything and end up paralyzing themselves in the process? Your thoughts?
I think when they're looking at the video, one of the things that I try to get them to understand is, when we're making specific movements, it's based on, ball flight cause and effect. And it's based off of, what is the quote unquote, the virus in their swing? What's the issue? So I get them to understand what we're trying to do. And then I would look at it, I said, now there's a lot of information out there, but how many of those videos are going to pertain specifically to what you and I are doing right now? Probably 1 out of 10,000. So you're better served understanding what we're trying to do here and working on these specific things instead of trying too many outside influences, which are going to push you further away from where we're trying to go. So I try to give them the specific things that I want them to work on. Like John, I send them a review, email it to them. I have a program that I use. And so we talk about, until I see you again, here are the specific things I want you to work on. And so trying to steer them into, staying focused on the specific, simple things that are going to change for them and what they need to do, rather than taking some generic video that's out there, that's probably not going to deal with what they're trying to do anyway. So that's sort of how I try to steer them, from getting too much information. But I also try to make sure that I said, keep it pretty simple. I said, we're trying to go from A to B. That's it. I want you to go from A to B. We're going to start here at address. We're going to move it to here. So until we get that down, we're not going to C. So let's get A to B done first, and then we can move on to the next. And I also try to get them to understand that, many, many times when we make a backswing change, now we're going to have to make a downswing change because your old one's not going to fit what we just did. So there's going to be some time that we have to go from one to the other. And so if they understand the process, I think then the outside influences that are out there will tend to sort of stay. They won't be trying to look for them because you can give them a roadmap to where we're going to go, what we're going to do, and the simple things that I want them to work on until I see them again. And I think video can help that a lot. Sometimes when, when try not to show them too much, but if they're starting to make the movements like I want them to make, then I will film it. And I'll say, look, this is what I'm trying to get you to do. Look at the difference. Do a comparison. Say, here's where you were, here's where we're going. And, get them to see that, well, I did make a change. But just something, in that one specific simple thing we're trying to make them change, not necessarily doing an entire swing. But I think if you can get them to understand, what their issue is, what the cause is, how it affects the ball flight, and then how to fix it, I think that will help to, curtail any of the other outside influences and them trying to search for more things to do and just staying with, what you're trying to get them to do in the first place.
Right. And I think it's all about control from an instructor standpoint. If we want to be able to control the environment, in meaning that, we want them to focus on specific things and not just sort of willy-nilly go in, 20 different directions. We want to make sure that we've isolated the problems. We're going to give them a solution, and by doing so, we're going to give them certain things to work on that are going to help overcome some of the problems that they've been facing. And I think you have to be specific, and you can't just sort of, as you said, you have to sort of go from A to B before you move on to C. John, here's something that, I think from a teaching pro, coach's standpoint, there's always something new. And I'm not just talking equipment, but there's always something new happening in our industry at any given time. And obviously, our students are becoming a little bit more savvy, especially with the onset of online activity. How do we keep students informed about things that are new, that are not so much new, but that are going to be pertinent to what they're doing without overwhelming them? And does it go to what I just said about controlling? Do we control the environment? In other words, do we say, okay, here's some things that you may want to familiarize you with. We'll talk a little bit about it. And then here's something I want you to kind of review or take a look at because it pertains to problems that you're having. Is that something that's worthwhile doing? Should we be doing that? Because we know that they're going to be surfing around anyways. Is it better for us to sort of control that environment of what's new out there, what could help them, as opposed to just letting them do whatever they want or giving them too much information? How do we find a balance in that? I guess the question I'm looking for is, how do we find a balance in keeping them informed about what's coming up or new that could help them without overwhelming them with too much information?
Well, that's I think the greatest challenge I've seen as an instructor in the last 10 years versus when I first started as an instructor. I've been teaching the game for 25 years, and when I first started, there was no internet. So there was no, I literally, sometimes I will have students who come in who know more information about a shaft, for example. They've been researching shafts. I mean, there's 10,000 shafts out there. And they've been researching a specific shaft, and they'll ask me about it, and I don't know what they're talking about because it's a shaft that I haven't even heard of. So it can be overwhelming from that standpoint for someone. If you just start, Googling different things in teaching, or you go on YouTube, or you go on any website, it can be overwhelming. The way I monitor it and the way I do it is I can't compete against that. I know that the Internet's out there. I know that all those videos are out there. So what I've created is my own website, and I basically have said, if you go to deckergolf.com, I have all of my videos, not all of them, but most of them now have been put on that website, and over the winter I'll be putting the rest of them. And I tell my students, if you're going to go watch videos, I want you to go to my website, and I want you to watch my videos, because you're going to be getting a consistent message with the way I'm teaching you. If you start jumping around and going and watching all these different videos from all these different instructors, you're going to be overwhelmed, and you're going to hear a lot of things that are conflicting and different. And unfortunately, that's just going to make you more confused, and you're going to have too much information that's not specific for your problem. And everyone who comes to an instructor or plays the game, they know they have a problem. They just are not looking at it objectively. They're not looking at their problem objectively. They're trying to figure it out themselves, self-diagnose, and try to do these things. And unfortunately, that's just a recipe for disaster. And it's just like if I were majorly sick and I didn't know what was wrong with me, I can't go on the Internet and just start saying, well, I'm going to try this, I'm going to try that. I need to go to a doctor who is a specialist in whatever it is that's wrong with me, and have them diagnose the problem and then trust them. And so that's the ultimate thing that we're looking for as an instructor, and that's what you're trying to gain with your students, is that trust that they're going to listen to you and not listen to the 10,000 other voices out there that they're watching on the Internet. But it is definitely a struggle, especially for the younger generation. I see this all the time with people. They'll be pulling their videos out, and they're not taking instruction, and they're watching videos off YouTube and just trying different things out on the driving range, and unfortunately that doesn't always work.
Yeah, and that again, just to clarify, we're not necessarily suggesting that that everybody that's, and I'm talking instructors, legitimate instructors, not just the the ones that want to just put information out there. But there's a lot of good, certified instructors that have their own opinions, their own theories and whatnot, and that's fine. But you're exactly right. You raise a really good point, is if you're coming to me, or in your case, John Decker, to take a golf lesson, then you need to really focus on the things that I'm teaching or talking about, and not mixing it up with 2 or 3 other people, because, again, they may have a different approach. That doesn't necessarily mean theirs is wrong and mine's right. It's just different. Obviously, what you're teaching is sound, and it works, and it's been proven to work, but it might be different than somebody else's. So I think it is important. And again, it goes back to what I said. I think you need to control the environment. Now, that doesn't mean that people aren't going to go, and you're exactly right. I mean, I've had people come up to me and say, I was reading about, or I was, watching this, and what do you think about that? And it might be something that's relatively new, or it might be getting into the biomechanics and that. And I'll be quite honest with them and say, I really don't know. I have an understanding how the body works, but from a scientific standpoint, I don't understand some of the terminology that you're referencing here, because I'm not somebody that's qualified in that area. So it is very, very difficult and can be very, very frustrating. Which brings me, Pete, to this point is, if we're all uniquely different, which of course we are, different shapes and sizes and whatnot, how do you decide what's right for your student? Especially as we just pointed out, with so many options, including different swing theories and that. How do you decide what's right for your student?
That's a great question. For me, I'm always going to look at the relationship between the club and the ball. So what's going on at impact? How's the face? How's the path? How's the angle? We're looking at the overall shape of it and how it's creating the shots that they're getting. And so I'm always going to work towards neutral, square, end to end, good angle of attack, getting the swing plane very neutral. Those are the things that over the time that I've been teaching this game, which is, I hate to admit, is getting closer to 40 years now than anything else. But it's, I've taken all that information that you see out on YouTube, and I've put it into a mixing machine, and I've tossed out what isn't necessary. So I've just brought it down to the very simple things you need to do in order to get the club and the ball's relationship to behave. Now, I'm going to pretty much look at the golf swing in the same similar way with everybody that I see, because the club and the ball only have certain things that need to be done for them to work together. Now, I may approach it in a little bit different way depending on who I have in front of me, because they may be visual. You may have to do everything on audio. If you just tell them they can do it, you might have to go in there and grab them and move them. But, every one of my lessons is very similar for everybody that I see. And I know there's a lot of people that say, people are different, you can't do that. And I say, look, I've been doing this a long time. And that club and ball only have a few things they can do. They're either going to go one direction or this direction. And everybody can make the motion to put the club and the ball in a very, very simple motion and a very simple direction relative to how it starts and address to be able to hit consistent shots. And so, I've been doing this for a long time now and been very successful with it, and giving everybody very similar things to do. I might say it a little bit different for one direction or the other, because like I said, people learn differently. So you may have to verbalize it a little bit different. But I've always worked on the impact, club face, the direction the club's moving, look at the contact. What's the contact doing to give them the shots that they see? What are they doing to cause that contact? And then from here's how we're going to neutralize it. So we're going to work towards neutral, because, in all the ones that I have, I tell them, I said, if you can find straight, right and left are easy to find. They're simple to find if you know where straight is. So let's get to neutral, and then if you need to move some shots around, that's pretty easy to do. But I want you to see what correct is first, and then based on correct, let's go from there. So, I think if in my personal experience, is just looking at the contact first. As I've told you before, I was fortunate to stand in John Jacobs' pocket for a long time watching him teach. And just very, very simple stuff based on the club and the ball's contact. and the diagnosis of how to change that and make it better.
Yeah, and you're exactly right too. I think experience. You get to learn certain things over your career, and you get to see what works and what doesn't work. And you're exactly right from the standpoint. There is only one square club face at impact. There's only one way there is multiple ways of getting there successfully, as we've seen with many tour players. If you go back over the history, you look at somebody like a Lee Trevino and Jim Furyk as an example. You see a Freddie Couples that has a slightly different, but the one thing they all have consistent is the club face is square at impact. So how you arrive at that really isn't as important as making sure that it is square at impact if you want to hit the ball straight. And I think that what happens is people get too caught up in the process and try to overcomplicate things. And I would rather, for instance, as an example, if you're telling somebody, okay, I want you to walk a straight line, everybody's going to walk that straight line differently. Some people are going to pull their shoulders back. Some are going to kind of swing their arms a little bit. And some might just walk with their arms, deadlocked straight beside. I don't care as long as they're walking that line straight. Now, if making it easier for them involves them moving their arms a little bit and making it more comfortable with their shoulders back, what have you, then that's something I can introduce. But you're exactly right. I want them to be able to walk that straight line first and then work from there. And I think sometimes, we see with some of these videos that they're watching is they're getting so technical with so much information, and they're not really focusing on the key important areas that are going to help people truly become a better player. John, here's a sort of an interesting thing I wanted to ask you, and that is, we've all had this scenario or something similar where maybe you taught a student, years ago and, fixed their problem, but they come back with the same problem, and for some reason the fix no longer works. What do you do in a situation like that? And that can happen. I have some theories on that. I want to hear what you have to say. But you've worked with a student, a few years ago. They had a specific problem. You gave them a solution to it. Obviously seemed to work for them. And then suddenly they come back, 3-4 years later and say, hey, John, for some reason this is still happening. I've tried that fix we worked on. For some reason, it's not working right now. What do you do in a case like that? And be as specific as you like.
Well, we have, the thing that I've learned about the human body, and I've learned as a teacher, and I've learned from teaching this game, is that we all have things in our swing that the flaws that we have that are kind of ingrained. And I know there's certain things that I do in my golf swing and certain things I've been working on in my golf swing, and I've been working on them for 20 years. And and I get them, you're using the term neutral. I get them as close to neutral as possible. But if I stop playing for a while, if I just kind of lose focus on what I'm doing, or maybe try to think about something else in my swing, all of a sudden they kind of creep back in. And that happens over time, and that's human nature. And there's things that Tiger is working on. Tiger talks about he gets stuck sometimes in the downswing, and that's something that he's worked on for his entire career. And every player has something that will kind of creep back in there. So I think I don't know why. Like if someone comes to me and I work with them and I fix them, and then I don't see them for a couple of years, maybe they went and saw maybe they wanted to go and get some other advice and they went down another path. And maybe they realized that, wow, this isn't working a couple of years later. Or maybe they're not playing as much golf, as they were. Or maybe they stopped working on it. They think, okay, I've got it. I fixed that. And that's a big mistake that a lot of people make, is they think, okay, I fixed that problem. Now I don't have to focus on it anymore. When I was working with Bob Sowers on the PGA Tour, I worked with him for 12 years. And I said, Bob, the flaws that you have in your swing and that we're working on, you're always going to have. It's like being an alcoholic. You never stop being an alcoholic. You're always going to be an alcoholic. You're always going to have to pay attention to these things because they will creep back in, and they usually creep back in under pressure. So we've got to make sure that we're always working on the drills. We're always, being proactive and never take for granted, okay, I fixed that. I don't have to work on that anymore. You should, Nicklaus would always start out every session, every year, working on his grip and his ball position and his posture. He would work on the fundamentals every year, even when he was the best player in the world. So you're never good enough to just say, well, I've got that fixed. I don't have to work on it anymore. So that's kind of, to answer your question, I think there's a lot of reasons why, but it typically comes back to people stop working on it because they think they've got it fixed.
Yeah, and you're exactly right. And I think also, too, from another perspective, I think a lot of people don't factor in that our body changes over time as well. Now, year to year it's not as noticeable, but let's say, if they came to you 5 years ago and, they were 45 and now they're, 51, and 6 years later they've come to you, 6 years can make a difference in somebody's body. So you have to factor that in as well. Some changes may not be affected, but there are some changes, especially if it's in either the backswing or the follow through. Body, your body changes can affect that. Maybe you've put on extra weight. Maybe your hip, you've had some hip issues in those 5-6 years that's causing you not to shift your weight properly. So you might have understood the fix that was given to you 5-6 years ago, but your body's not allowing you to incorporate it into your swing as easily as it once did. You look at you brought up Nicklaus, John, as a good example. I mean, Nicklaus had hip operation. You watch him swing a golf club now compared to what he used to. There's a little bit of a pop in his swing because he can't transfer his weight as smoothly as he once did because of that hip. So there's a lot of factors that can be involved, and you're exactly right. Maybe they're not working on the stuff enough. They figure that they've got it cured and they can just sort of move on to the next thing. Well, no, you always have to be working on your game. The best players in the world do, and we shouldn't think that we shouldn't have to do that either. So there's a lot of factors that can play into that, but that's a great answer. Pete, as we get ready to end this Coach's Corner section, I'm going to give you this final question here. And how do you measure your students' progress, and how should they? What do you consider success, and what should they be doing, or how should they be monitoring or measuring their progress? What do you say to them to allow them to be able to measure how they feel they're doing?
Well, I guess more than anything else in golf, the indicators of score. So how are they playing now versus when we started? The score is a big indicator of what they're doing, but also, contact-wise, dispersion, your overall shots. Are you missing more shots, right or left still, or are you starting to find that your patterns are becoming more consistent out in front of you? Contact on the short game shots, distance control, putting. I always try to look at each individual area and say, okay, from putting, here's where we were before, lots of 3-putts. I said, how's your distance control now? Chipping, your patterns of shots that are getting closer to the hole, pitching, contact-wise, trajectory, how are you doing with those? And then the full shots, as far as all of the clubs going, are you starting to be able to control the ball more than you did before? So those are the things that, can indicate, the improvement that they're making. It doesn't always, at the beginning equate right to the score because there's so many elements involved in scoring. I mean, you can hit 2 great shots in 4-putt and it's still a 6. So, there's a lot of things that happen in there in an overall scoring basis. But, I think the first indicator is, are they understanding what they're trying to do? I mean, to me, that's a big, big win if I can stand there and say, hey, what are you trying to do? And they can verbalize it back to me. I mean, that's a huge victory for me. So that's a great improvement right there. And then when they hit a shot and it's not correct, they're able to verbalize right back to me what happened. That's another victory. So I try to get them to understand the strides they're making and being able to understand their swing, understand their game, and how it's improving so that now when they're out there, they're starting to recognize things that happen and they're able to fix them. I mean, that's the great thing. I get texts all the time that says, boy, it was going sideways, and I remember what you said, based on this ball flight, and I did this, and boy, it changed right away, and I got myself back on track. I mean, that's a victory there. I mean, that's an improvement. So it doesn't always have to be the score, but I mean, the score is the big indicator in golf, because when you get done playing, what do they ask you? What did you shoot?
Right.
I mean, that's what they want to know. What was your score today? They're not interested. Did you drive it far on 14? But I think if you can look at the stages, and I always tell my students, I said, just remember this. I remember where you were when we started. So let's look at where you started and where you are now. There's a big improvement there. So I think it's the overall quality of their shots. But to me, more than anything else, the better they understand, what they're supposed to be doing and how to do it, and how to correct it when it goes, south, which it's going to go south. We all know that. It happens. There's just times that it's not going to work as well as it should. But I think if they can begin to understand and know what their issues are and know how to begin to fix them, I think that's, a big check mark for improvement. And as I said, it doesn't necessarily mean that the score is going to be that much better, but their understanding is so much better. But that's going to lead to better scores anyway. But, there's many parts to that and how well they're improving and different things they can do. But, my goal has always been to get my students to understand, cause and effect, why they do what they do, what the fix is, and how to fix it, and be able to do that on their own. So to me, that's a win I'm always looking for, and improvement I'm always looking for with all my students.
Yeah, and well said. I think a lot of players, a lot of our high handicap golfers out there obviously want to shoot better scores ultimately, as well as improve in striking the ball, hitting some better shots, and consistency, I think, is probably when it comes to their actual golf swing and ball striking, is they want to be consistent. They want to know that when they pull out that 5, 6, or 7 iron, or they pull their driver out, they don't expect to hit every shot perfectly, but they want to feel confident with that whatever club they've got in the bag in their hand at that particular time. And obviously they want to get out there and they want to try to improve their scoring. And I think when they start to see that and they start to see some consistency in their ball striking, then they're going to feel better about themselves. If they're not seeing improvement in any areas, then it's very, very difficult to really, as we talked about earlier, to really kind of pump yourself up and be excited about things. And I think that's really what gets people dropping out of this game, is the level of frustration we talked about earlier is, and I think part of it is, and we even see this at the professional level, is they get focused so much on the process, on making sure everything, everything gets from point A to point B to point C in such a perfect way that it's not. It might look good. I mean, there's a lot of players on tour that you can point to that have, picture perfect golf swings, if you were to call them that. But they're not scoring week in, week out. They're not, they're not winning tournaments very often. They've certainly won some, but not as often. And there's other players that never win any, or very few. And then there's players that maybe don't have the picture-perfect swing, but they're winning lots of golf tournaments or have won lots of golf tournaments over their career. So I agree with you. I measure success on the results that you're getting out of the golf course, and also the level of consistency that you're playing with. And the score will obviously, the more consistent you get, certainly will help, fall into place on some level as well. But it all becomes part of the strategy as well, as how you play and how you address the course. You can be the best ball striker in the world, but not necessarily score that great because you don't know how to put it all together. So food for thought, and some great points that you guys covered tonight. I think the listeners will hopefully be able to pull a few nuggets out there. Great job, guys. And as always, going to give you both an opportunity to share the best way to reach you to our audience here. So I'm going to go in different order this time. John, I'm going to give you the option to go first, and then Pete.
Well, first of all, Ted, thank you again for having us on the show. And Pete, as always, I enjoyed being on with you tonight as well. For the listeners out there, if you want to get in touch with me, the best way to do it is to go to my new website. It's deckergolf.com. If you go on the website, I have all my videos on there. You can also find me on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, or LinkedIn. If you go under and just put John Decker in, I spell my first name Jon. You can find me on any of those social media platforms. I'm also, as Ted mentioned earlier, a senior editor with Golf Tips Magazine, so I write instructional articles for the magazine, do videos for the magazine, and I have a feature in there, Christian golf feature called Fairways to Heaven, which is in the magazine each month. And Ted, I want to thank you again for allowing me that opportunity. My book, Golf is My Life, Glorifying God Through the Game, is available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and Walmart.com. And if you're looking for a public speaker, I do a lot of golf outings, church outings, anything along those lines. Or if you're just looking for a speaker, for a youth group or things, feel free to reach out to me. That's something I do as well. But, again, thank you for having us on tonight, Ted. And, Pete, once again, I really enjoyed it.
Sounds good. A pleasure, John, as always. Pete, what about you? Best way that they can reach out to you?
Yeah, again, Ted, thanks for having us on. John, it's always a pleasure, being on the show with you. I really enjoyed the segments we do together. They can reach me at PeteBuchananGolf.com. That's the simplest way. All my contact information's out there. And, we got some exciting things that are going to be coming this winter. I teach all winter long, and we've got some things that are going to be coming. So hit the website, and we'll have the news out there of some things we're going to be doing as we get into this winter season to prepare for next year. So, but again, thanks for having us on, Ted. It's always a pleasure.
All right. Well, thank you, and I will see you, I guess, the same time next month. Thanks, guys. Always have a great weekend, and thanks for joining me and helping me out here on Coach's Corner here on Golf Talk Live. Have a great weekend, guys. We'll see you next time.
You too. Thanks, Ted.
All right, that was John Decker and Pete Buchanan joining me on the Coach's Corner segment here on Golf Talk Live. As mentioned, I'm going to be joined here momentarily by my very special guest, Kelly Paraguay. He's the president of Kelkin Enterprises. He's going to be joining me in just a minute, but we're going to take a quick message from Golf Tips Magazine.
The following ad is sponsored by Golf Tips Magazine.
Are you tired of being short off the tee? And what about those 3 putts? Forget about it. It's time you got serious about your game. Golf Tips, the most in-depth magazine in the industry. For over 30 years, Golf Tips has delivered expert content such as the latest golf instruction from America's top pros, simple-to-follow practice and game improvement drills, fitness and mental game tips, equipment, training aids, accessory and apparel reviews, golf destinations and travel tips for every budget, and so much more. Don't miss a single issue. Go to golftipsmag.com and subscribe today.
All right, and don't forget to go to golftipsmag.com, and you can subscribe either for a print version, digital version, or both. Go to golftipsmag.com and subscribe today. Also, there's a lot of great videos and instructional articles and some product reviews as well that you'll find on the website, so go to golftipsmag.com and check it out. All right, as I mentioned, I'm going to be joined by my very special guest this evening. He's here to talk about a few different things, but particularly about a new golf ball that he's launched, and we're going to get some details, get the skinny, as it were, on that. Of course, I'm talking about Kelly Paraguay. He's the president of Kelkin Enterprises, and we're going to be talking about his new golf ball, the Incinerator, and some other things as well. So please welcome my very special guest, Kelly Paraguay. Good evening, Kelly, and welcome.
How you doing, Ted?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you doing, Kelly?
Doing pretty good. Thanks for having me on your show.
Always a pleasure. Glad that you were able to come back and join me tonight. I thought before we get into some of the specifics, I thought we would talk a little bit about some of the problems, and this sort of leads up to why you're doing what you're doing with some of the products. I know you came on the last year and talked about a few of the other products, and at that time you hadn't officially launched this particular golf ball, but you were getting ready to launch it in the months leading up to this time. But I want to talk about really some of the issues that you've noticed, because obviously you've done instruction as well, that you've noticed in the industry that's really sort of prompted you to do some of the things that you're doing. So what are some of the things that you've seen and noticed over the years being around the golf business, as I have, that really sort of spurred the interest from your perspective of, okay, you know what, I think we can make this a little bit easier, not just from an instructional standpoint, but even in equipment. There were things that you've noticed in the golf industry that people were really struggling with that give you pause to say, you know what, I'd like to do something about that, help some of the everyday golfers out that are struggling in this area or that area by doing some of the things that you're now doing. So talk about what were some of the things that really caught your eye over the years that you've really seen many of our, especially our high handicap golfers, really struggle with.
Okay. What the two biggest problems that I noticed that most of your amateur golfers, they grip it too tight, the club. And by doing that, you basically, most of the time when you do that, it shoots the ball to the right most of the time. And that's why you see a lot of people, when they get on the tee box, they hit it out to the right. It's because they're trying their best to grip it and rip it. And either that or they do a duck hook. So, and it's hard to tell how much pressure to put on there, so I invented a golf glove to fix that problem. It's got little air pockets all the way through the fingers and in the palm side. And what this does, the harder you press, that air is going to push your fingers back off the grip. So I try to invent all the products that I've invented will solve the problem. It takes the guesswork out. So that was our first product we come out with. It's called the Pro Air Grip Golf Glove. The next product, the incinerator that we've got out now, will prevent from hooking and slicing. And that was another problem that most of the golfers were having. I'd say 90% of the golfers that I've worked with, they either hooking or slicing, they want me to get them out of it. So I say, well, I'll just come out with a golf ball that'll prevent that. I won't have to sit there and, constantly put it into them, see, here's the thing about it. Golf is muscle memory. And when you got muscle memory, it's easy to go back into old habits. Even though you got a lesson, you'll slip right back into it. You don't realize it. So, therefore, just invent a product that would automatically eliminate all that guesswork out, because you don't want to think on the golf course.
Yeah, and I think what happens, too, you're exactly right, Kelly. With the other problem that I see, too, besides what you mentioned, is people don't really want to put the time in as much as they say they do. I mean, I've taught golf now.
Correct.
This is actually my 30th year now. And, I teach mainly corporate, but I get a lot of folks that have come out over the years, and, they'll come for a lesson. We'll work on some things. I'll give them, I hate to use now, I used to use it before, but I don't use it anymore, homework, if you will, or drills to work on. People don't like homework. It's a bad karma from school or something. I don't know. So I try to phrase it differently now. But, I'll give them some drills and things to work on. And then maybe it's going to be 2 weeks before we get together again, depending on their schedule. And, I'll talk to them right from the beginning. I'll say, what have you been working on? Have you been working on some of these? And I can tell by the hesitation that they haven't gone back. I've had some projects that we've been working on at my company and so on and so forth. So I know right away they haven't done the duties and the tasks that I've set forth for them to work on. I agree to what you're saying is, as an instructor, ideally you'd like to be able to work through those things and have them be able to go out there and get back to, business. But the truth of the matter is we know that most of them are not going to follow that to the letter. And this is why you've come out with this. So tell us a little bit about what went into the thought process with the incinerator golf ball. This is uniquely different. I mean, you obviously sent me out some to try out, and it is very different looking from traditional golf balls. It certainly has dimples on it, but the dimples are different. So talk about what went behind the development of this golf ball.
Okay, what I've done, you got to figure out how to take the spin off the golf ball. So what I did, on each of the dimple on this golf ball, I put a stem right dead in the middle. So when the wind picks up on one side of the dimple, stem blocks the wind from hitting the back side of that dimple. So and it takes that spin off. The good thing about this stem also, a lot of people say, well, how's it going to hold the greens? Well, it holds the greens. Wherever you hit it, most of the time it won't stay within a foot or two when it hits. And it's because of that stem in the middle, it's like a spike. When it hits inside that green, that spike hits that turf and it stops it. And also, when you're putting, it tracks. In fact, if you got grain and you're worried about the grain going against it, whatever, don't worry about it. It'll go right through the break right there. It eliminates a lot of break, put it that way, going to the hole.
How did you come up with the technology for this? I mean, this is not something that you just say, well, I'm going to put a stem in the middle. there obviously was a lot of research in that. How did you come up with that? Was it through an R&D, a lot of research and development on your part? Was it conversations that you had with other pros, or what? How did you come up enough to know to do that? Because that's not something most people, I'm sure. I mean, I see a lot of golf balls, and I'm going to exclude the main guys like Titleist and Callaway and some of the others. But this is not something that I've seen any of the other non-mainstream golf companies come up with. So how did you come up with this idea to put that in there? How did you know to do that? Did you work with some people that deal with aerodynamics that were able to guide or coach you in that? What was the research behind developing this dimple pattern?
Well, to be honest with you, like I get up 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, I start thinking of things. And I think about being behind a tree. If the wind's blowing, that tree blocks the wind off from you. And I said, well, this is the same principle. And I'll be honest with you, I did not know it would work. I went ahead and had it develop a prototype and went out there and had a golf ball launcher and launched it against the leading companies in the golf industry. Out of 12 golf balls, on each one of them, every one of ours went straight, and the rest of theirs pulled to the left. So I proved my theory that way. And coming up to the next ball, I used the aerogel inside of it for winter weather. And it had great results on it when I was testing it for whether it's going to hook or slice.
Now, this is explain a little bit about this for the listeners out there. You're talking about the sort of the next evolution of this golf ball. You're talking about the gel. So describe a little bit about what you mean by that, where the gel is in the golf ball. Is it something that's in the center? Is it in a lining? Explain a little bit and about what it actually does.
Okay, it's going to be called the Pro Stabilizer. And a lot of people say, why, you call it incinerator too, whatever, but we just come out with the Pro Stabilizer. So it stabilizes the temperature inside the core of the golf ball. So what I've done, where your dimple pattern is that you're covering, on the next layer will be your aerogel. It's a special aerogel, and what this does, it insulates. It's a very, very good insulator. In fact, it's 98% air, very light. In fact, you can see through it. You can see your fingers if you held it. But then the inner core, I put a carbon black material. It's a metallic. Also, I put a ball bearing in the middle. So what this does, I've invented a heating unit also that's going to be going with the golf balls. You can purchase them both together, and after you purchase them together, you can buy the golf ball separate. But what it'll do, it'll heat it up to 105 degrees, and then the aerogel will take over and insulate it. Now, you probably can play 4 or 5 holes before the temperature starts dropping, depending on how cold it is outside. It's just like in your house. If you turn off your heat, the insulation takes over. But even if you've got insulation, the temperature is going to start gradually dropping, depending on how cold it is outside. So what I've done is I put on the logo, it's like a little pigment in the paint. So when the temperature starts to drop, the logo will change colors for you to rotate the golf ball. But a lot of people lose 10 to 15 yards off the tee, depending on how cold it is. And this will eliminate that. Also, during the summer, it will prevent flyers. A lot of people don't realize, say, well, how come I hit it over the green? It's because sometimes that ball gets overheated, and it'll cause you that overshoot, and that's what's caused it.
And what people don't understand, just to clarify so people understand, going back to it being cold, here, obviously, up in the Northeast and that where, they get a much harsher winter, people are not outside playing golf, so it doesn't really pertain as much to them at that particular time, certainly in the fall or early spring when it's a little bit cooler. But here in the South, where we're playing golf all year round, it might get down to 50 degrees or maybe a little bit cooler, and your ball when it gets a little bit cool is obviously not going to travel as far. So this allows us, and what's really interesting about this is, once you've connected it with the heater and heat it up to that 105 degrees, is now, as you said, you can play, and I would suspect, again, depending on how cold it is, you might even be able to play that particular ball for maybe even more than 4 holes, but that's certainly what, through your testing it's done. And again, that may be at different temperatures, but the idea is down here in the South, that's a big problem, is that the golf balls get cold, especially if they've been sitting in your trunk with the golf clubs. You're out there and you're playing, and it's maybe 50 degrees. It's a nice fall day or early winter day, and the golf balls are a little cool from sitting in the car or what have you, and they're not going very far. So this new golf ball that you're coming out with the gel and the heater allows you to sort of overcome some of those issues, correct?
That's correct. And we tested, like I said, against a dozen of the leading golf balls, and we beat them 13 to 26 yards in 38-degree weather. That's what we tested in. Also, and you probably say, how you heat it up if you're in a golf cart with no electricity. What I've done, I've got 2 different ways you can do this. The golf carts now have a USB port that they can plug it into. And if they don't have a USB port, they can use the batteries. Right.
So there's not an issue for charging. Again, most of the newer golf carts particularly do have a USB port because everybody's carrying their phone and whatnot, or it also is available with batteries. So there's really no excuse. You have an option either way of being able to take this heater. And it's not a big, just so that people don't understand, it's not some great big heater. It's actually relatively small, so it's not cumbersome. It's not something that they're, some heavy object they're lugging around. And while they're using the one that's been heated, they can put another golf ball in there for when the first one sort of cools down, right?
Yes. In fact, it's about the size of the sleeve of golf balls. That's what it's going to be, just a small, compact heater. And I'm going to have it attached to the dozen golf balls when you buy them. And it will heat it less than a minute to 105 degrees. Now, I can set it up a little bit higher, but I got to test it out once we get it in. We're projected to.
Right.
I try to get it where I do it at starting to fall, but because of shipping problems throughout the U.S. and overseas, it's going to probably look like it's around going to be December or January before we're going to be able to launch this.
And this is, again, now, how do you come up with, obviously you explained how you've come up with the different theories and things and why things work the way they do, but, you obviously see a lot of golfers and have seen a lot of golfers with various problems. You obviously come up with a lot of different solutions, as you did with the first golf ball and now with this one here. Is this something that you've really started to focus on with your business over the last little while, where you're, rather than just coming up with a lot of gimmicky things that we see so many other companies doing, you're actually addressing specific problems that golfers are having, and you're actually coming up with a solution that works. Tell us about how you what brought you to go down this path, I guess, is what I'm looking for.
Okay. Like I said, I've noticed that a lot of people are having trouble getting off the tee box when it's cold, and they, say, hey, I'm losing yardage. And so a lot of them sit there and say, well, I'm going to go buy me a driver to pay $500 or $600 to make up the difference in the yardage. They don't have to now. With getting the golf ball, I'm trying to save money, for one thing. And second, I'm solving another problem they're having. And speaking of that, we've got another product coming out. There's going to be some insoles. It's going to be called the Pro Air Equalizer. And what this does is it keeps you from swaying on the golf shot, because a lot of people sway on it, and you don't realize it. But if you get somebody to look at your head's moving, it's hard to keep stationary. But what it is, they're a half-inch higher on the outside of your shoe. You put them in your golf shoes, and they're very comfortable. You think it's a little bit awkward being a half-inch higher, but it's not. But it'll keep your swaying on the takeaway and your fall through. And because a lot of times when people shank a golf ball, swaying is what's causing that. You sway the hosel right to the ball. So we're fixing a lot of problems. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say it sounds like that's what you're really focusing on now, is as opposed to just, one of the problems that I have, and I've, as you have, I'm sure over the years, been down to the to the golf show in Orlando, the PGA merchandising show, and we see a lot of products and have seen a lot of products over the years, and I don't want to throw darts at somebody's inventions, but we see a lot of very gimmicky things and things that really don't perform or do things. But you're taking a much different approach. You're trying to really honestly solve a lot of the issues that golfers are having. And, that says a lot, because there are, as I said, a lot of products out there and that's not to say that they're not good products, but they're not something that anybody. These are products that you've talked about here so far are products that really can apply to any golfer of any level.
Exactly.
And, this has caused a lot of frustration for a lot of people. I mean, I know myself, I've heard a lot of people say, doesn't matter what I do with my golf swing, I just can't, the ball's slicing or hooking all the time. And, here you are, you've come out with the incinerator that alleviates that problem. Now you've got a situation where, golfers that want to play or do play in what we would call the off-season up north. Obviously, it's a regular season down here for us because we're in a nicer climate. But, a lot of golfers talk about losing distance. And you're right. I would rather find something much more affordable for them to do, whether it's working on their game, with some less expensive lessons, or in this case with a golf ball a new golf ball that you created, as opposed to going out and spending $400, $500, $600 on a new driver to get that extra distance when it's really not necessary. And obviously, you've come up with the same approach as well. As I would rather find a solution that's affordable, that's easy to address, and easy to solve some of the issues that many golfers are faced with, than coming out with an overpriced, expensive product that is just not really going to get to the root of the issue. Correct?
That's correct. Another product that I haven't mentioned to you, I've invented a putter grip because a lot of people use their hands, get very handsy when they putt, and when you start getting handsy, you don't have a great putting stroke, and that's why a lot of people they 2 and 3 putts, do a lot of 3 putts because of that. You need to use your shoulders. So this putter I've got will make you use your shoulders automatically. I'm trying to get it where you don't go out in the golf course doing thinking. You start thinking, your scores are going to suffer. And it's just because you start worrying about, what am I supposed to do this, that? How come I missed that shot? How come I pulled that shot or pushed it? A lot of things go through your mind, then you start thinking, and trust me, your scores will suffer if you start thinking. You do your thinking on the range, and you take that out to the golf course and just let it do it itself, muscle memory.
Yeah, and you're exactly right. You mentioned that from the get-go. It really is about muscle memory. I mean, a lot of people, we talked about this on an earlier segment tonight before you came on our Coach's Corner panel, and really talked about how, people need to ingrain, certain things in their golf swing. And unfortunately, most people don't have the time or the willingness to put that time and effort into practicing a lot of things. So sometimes you have to give them a little help. And if they don't have the time for whatever reason, whether their lives are busy and their jobs or family life is busy, coming up with products such as you have is an alternative to some of the other issues that typically they would be faced with in order to improve their game. You're just giving them a helping hand without, having to break the bank account. And that's something I think that's important in this day and age. A lot of golfers, I'm sure, appreciate that as well. Are you going to, you mentioned the glove, the balls, and obviously the the Pro Air putter grip as well. And I know you've got probably some other things up your sleeve that you're not going to share tonight, but that's good. We'll have you back on another time. Do you keep studying what's going on in the industry as far as areas and issues that people are having? Is that really what inspires you to come up with new and creative ways of helping golfers?
Well, throughout the years, all the years that I've been playing golf and being an instructor, I really don't see a change in the products as far as helping the person. It might give you a little advantage, but it doesn't cure a problem. I mean, you go through the PGA show, you'll see what I'm talking about. It's just
right.
So I got tired of it and said, hey, I'm going to do something about it instead of complaining about it. Just go out there and fix the problem. So that's basically what I've done. And like I said, I'm not taking away from anybody's products, but, I'm just going by what I'm seeing. And everybody has opinions, and I guess I'm like everybody else. I try to do something about it instead of sitting there complaining about it.
Yeah, and that's important. I mean, we want to help as instructors. We want to help, students and other golfers out there. We want them to, the bottom line is this: if people are not enjoying their golfing experience, I mean, here we've had an opportunity. We've gone through this pandemic, and the golf industry has really, pardon the pun, gotten a real shot in the arm. There's been a lot of new people come to this game just by virtue of not being able to get out and do anything else. Golf was one of the very fortunate industries that really benefited from a difficult situation for many out there with this pandemic. And what I want to see is a change with these new golfers coming out and not falling into the same traps that the industry has done for years, where we just keep teaching them the same things and we're not really solving any of the problems. I mean, as you and I well know, handicaps have barely budged for 10, 15, 20 years or more. The handicap levels are basically the same. And yet we've had all kinds of advancement in equipment. We've had all kinds of advancement in teaching technologies and the onslaught of not just media and internet and things, but all kinds of technology, biomechanics. I mean, you name it, it's out there. And yet handicaps have barely budged. Now, it's worked very effectively at the pro level, but these are people that already understand the golf swing and already have played at a high level. But the average person really has not seen a lot of improvement, and it's because, I hate to say it, many of the products, not all of them, many of the products out there really are not designed for the average golfer. They're really designed to help the higher level, better players play better, and then it's sort of watered down for the everyday folks to, buy into, but it's really not helping them. I mean, you know as well as I do that most of the drivers and so forth on the market, we're not playing the same drivers that the pros are playing. They're playing something entirely different, right? We're playing a watered down, and I'm saying we as in the general public. So we're not really playing the same driver that, Tiger Woods is playing. It might say the same on there, but it's not. The technology is different. The shafts are different, so on and so forth. You've approached things a little bit differently, which is impressing me because you've decided, okay, I could do one of two things. I could just throw some products out there and just say, okay, here I'm selling some golf balls or I'm selling some grip golf gloves and so on and so forth. But you've actually put some thought into this and said, I want to create something that's actually going to give my fellow golfers a benefit. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I'll tell you what, a lot of people are sitting there listening to the show tonight. They're probably saying, well, this is probably another segment to try to sell products, and it's sort of true, but here's the thing about it. Our products are money back guaranteed, 30 days. If you're not satisfied, if it doesn't do what I say it'll do, you can get your money back within 30 days. It's just that simple. Balls also. You go look on there now, any golf ball you buy now, they do not have a money back guarantee on them.
Right.
And
you've got it right on. You've got it right on the package. I mean, it's right on the box itself. 30-day money-back guarantee. Nobody that I know of on the market is doing, and particularly in golf balls, nobody is doing that. I have not seen one golf ball manufacturer put that on their marketing package. Not one, except for yours. So you're exactly right.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. You don't have nothing to lose, and all you got to do is nothing but the game and have peace of mind. And it makes you feel good, especially when you're hitting the ball good and you're having a good round. And that's what it's all about. Just go out there and have fun. Don't go out there thinking and get frustrated. I'm trying to eliminate that the best I can, and hopefully I've accomplished that.
Well, and let me just clarify one thing as well. That's not to say that we don't want people going out and practicing and working on improving in whatever ways they can. You're just adding to it and saying, I'm going to provide some products that are going to help you tremendously in areas I know that the average golfer struggles with. That doesn't mean you just all of a sudden put the air brakes on, you never practice again, you don't work on your game. These are just products that are going to help with some benefit or another, depending on which product you get, that's going to help you improve your experience while you're out there practicing and trying to make things a little bit better, correct?
That's correct. That's correct. Everybody's going to need instruction, and you need to go out there and practice. Those touring pros go out there and practice sometimes 5 or 6 hours a day. And that's all the way. And their equipment is, you're exactly right, their equipment is set up different. Their loft is changed to where, instead of hitting an 8-iron, they've got the loft where it's a 6-iron. That's why they hit as far as they do. And their shafts, some of their shafts are up to $1,000 each. Our shafts are not that expensive. So, you're exactly right.
Fortunately.
If we had that kind of money and had it where it's set up like the pros, you see a big difference too, but you don't have that kind of money, most people, to do that.
Right, exactly. So if people are interested in the products that we've been talking about here, what's the best way? Where can they go to get more information? And where is, now I know the one golf ball, the one you talked about with the gel is not quite out on market right yet, and hopefully that'll get there, but the incinerator is currently available now. Where can they go to get it and get more information?
Okay, they can go to Pro Air Grip. That's Pro Air Grip, or Kelken Golf. That's spelled Kelken Golf. And a lot of people probably don't know this, but it's USGA approved. So, a lot of people, that's one of the first things they ask. It is USGA approved, so you can play at any kind of PGA sanctioned event.
That's fantastic. So go to proairgrip.com or Kelken Golf as well. You can put either one in, and that'll take you to the website. And they can purchase it right off the website, correct?
That is correct. That is correct.
Now, it's also is it also available? Are some of the pro shops? Are you getting it into some of the pro shops yet, or are you just strictly going to sell it online?
Well, right now we're selling them online, and we got online stores like Touch of Modern.
Right.
We're starting to put them on online stores, but we're going to start doing the pre-orders around December. I'm anticipating.
Mm-hmm. Okay, good. Okay, well, I think we've pretty much covered everything here. Is there anything else that you want to relay to the listeners out there, just so that they have an idea? If there's any other things that maybe they need to know that we can share with them now before I let you go?
Okay, the only thing I'm telling you, we're going to have more products coming out, and I think you'd be very surprised and you're going to save a lot of money. And I will talk about that on our next segment with you.
All right, sounds good. All right, if you're interested in any of the products that we talked tonight about the Incinerator Golf Ball, which is approved by the USGA sanction and is going to help reduce your hooks and slice, you can order that directly online from the website, and I'll give you that again in a moment. Or if you're interested in the Pro Air Golf Glove as well, as Kelly had talked about earlier, it's also available as well to purchase, and or the Pro Air putter grip. You can also get that online as well, and the website is proairgrip.com. That's proairgrip.com. There's also a great video on there that talks a little bit about the golf ball as well. But all of the information is there. You can order online, and they offer free shipping on any orders of $150 and above. So if you want to buy a number of items, they'll offer free shipping as long as your order is over $150, which is a good deal. So, well, Kelly, I want to thank you for coming on, and I know that you've got, and also if they want to reach out to you as well, some contact information there if you want to find out about the other golf ball that you mentioned as well with the gel in it. You're taking pre-orders for that as well, so they can reach out and maybe inquire or get some additional information about that from the same website. But Kelly, thank you for joining me tonight on Golf Talk Live, and I will have you back again when you've got some more interesting products to share. And I strongly urge, I've tested the golf balls myself, and they do exactly what Kelly says they do, so they're well worth it. And so check them out. Go to proairgolf.com, proairgrip.com. Kelly, thank you very much for joining me tonight on Golf Talk Live.
Ted, thank you so much for having me.
All right, I appreciate it. You have a great evening.
You too. Take care.
All right, bye-bye. All right, that was Kelly Paragoy, president of Kelkin Enterprises. Again, the products are really good. I've tried them, and as I alluded to throughout the segment, there are a lot of products out there, and a lot of manufacturers, a lot of suppliers out there, obviously vying for everybody's money. But Kelly has come up with some really good products. The golf ball is, again, does what it says. It's approved by the USGA, so it's obviously gone through its paces, so you can check it out. I want to also thank my earlier guests on the Coach's Corner panel, John Decker and Pete Buchanan. Thanks, guys, for always doing a great job on the Coach's Corner panel. And once again, thanks to Kelly Paragoy for joining me on as my special guest this evening. I'm going to be enjoying the Epson Tour's final event, the Tour Championship, here at the LPGA International Golf Course. I believe they're playing the Reese Jones course at the LPGA International, and I'm going to be joining that through the weekend, and then I'll be heading back. So be sure to join me next Tuesday. Hopefully we'll have the winner of this event on the Women of Golf podcast with Cindy Miller and I. Hopefully we'll be having the winner from this event next week on Tuesday, and then next Thursday I'll be back with another Coach's Corner and another interesting guest for my interview portion as well, so hope you join me. God bless everybody and have a great weekend.
Thanks for joining us. We hope you enjoyed this week's broadcast of Golf Talk Live. We'd like to thank this week's Coach's Corner panel, and a special thank you to tonight's guest. Remember to join Ted every Thursday from 6 to 8 p.m. Central on Golf Talk Live. And be sure to follow Ted on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. If you're interested in being a guest on Golf Talk Live, send Ted an email at ted.golftalklive@gmail.com. This has been a production of the iGolf Sports Network.